Good evening, everyone, and happy May. Welcome to our digital digest for this month. I am Teresa Crack, your FY18 section rep, and I am here with Elaine Reeves, who is our president-elect, and we're going to take you through this month's digital digest.
Hello.
What's on our agenda tonight is we're going to go through our minute or so with SWE PNW and talk about all the stuff we've got going on as a section where you can get engaged. Make sure you've got the in the know on that. Then we'll talk a little bit about our SWE business and behind the scenes, both at the wrap up of the region level and what's going on at the society level. Get into our SWE PNW shout outs there as well and recognize some awesome things that our members are doing. Our rotating topic this month is again our FY19 election update. We'll give you a status update as to where that process is at and what's coming on after that. And then we'll wrap up with an Ask Me Anything. And for the Ask Me Anything, we're asking that you go ahead and post to the Facebook event. And we'll pause a little bit when we get to that part to make sure the audio on the live broadcast catches up. So without further ado, welcome to a minute or so with SWE PNW. Up first, we want to remind everybody about ways that you can connect with SWE PNW for our communication. We have our website and our blog, which are great ways to go out and find things and read up on them at your leisure. We do also publish a periodic newsletter. It's distributed by email and it's up on the website after that. We also have several e-blasts that we are trying to schedule on a regular basis. Up first is our monthly events and highlights email. And just launched this month is our Outreach Corner, which we'll be talking about in a little bit more detail. And you can always find all of our past communications up on our website through our archive link under communications there. And then last but not least, we have our social media, which we are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So please be sure to engage with us there and share that and post your pictures as well. We love seeing pictures of you guys at our events. One of the other things that we've got is we have our Google Calendar, which lets you sync and have that on your mobile device. We also have our Facebook page events, which lets you interact and even sign up and reserve your tickets through our Facebook page. And you can share the pictures on our Instagram. Be sure that you're signed up for our email list. You can do that through our webpage, and you're going to make sure you get the latest information. The cool thing about that is that we also have email segments, which allow you to say that you're interested in professional development events or outreach or book club and get more targeted communication to that as well as our all section emails. And then don't forget that all of our events are up on Eventbrite. You can search SWE PNW and find all of our outreach, professional development, section events, book club, Rainier Ramblings events, and all of the other fun stuff that we're playing. So up next, I'm going to toss this over to Elaine to just briefly tell us what we've got on our webpage for our election materials.
So our election candidate process, we are now vetting the candidates, and what that means is we're asking all those that had expressed interest in running for a position to fill out some paperwork about themselves, about their previous volunteering experience, if they have any work experience, anything to make them flesh out as a candidate so that we know what they do have for a skill set and what they don't have. This is kind of based off of the route that HQ is going with all of their volunteering and community service. So we're trying it out in our section to make sure that everyone is prepared for all levels of SWE to do this. So this update will be our one-stop shop for all section election updates, from the email campaigns, the candidate interest forms, and everything else. You can check out our archive section to see last year's election information, like bios of our previous officers. And of course, on our webpage, if you go down to the bottom of on the left bar, you'll see the FY19 Section Election Central, and that will bring you to everything that is up to date on what's going on.
All right, perfect. That's a great thing to know for our section members, is that if they want to keep up to date in between our digital digests or the communications that we push out on email, it'll all be up on our webpage as we have information available. So up next, we want to give everybody a little bit of a rundown of what we've got going on with our events and activities. We do stretch into a little bit of June, with it being the middle of May here. We have several KICE events coming up. These are some of our outreach series that are done in Seattle. We've got a chemistry module that's going to be doing bottle rockets, another one on hand warmers, and another one on ice cream. And those are scattered on Friday afternoons through May and June. We are also looking for COM scholarship judging. So if you're interested in helping us judge the scholarships, there's a meeting for that on the 21st. If you're not able to attend that meeting, reach out to our outreach VP, Dana, and she will coordinate with you to see what we can do to have you help with that process. On the 23rd of May, there is also a Sammamish High School STEM night. We're looking for volunteers to help with that. Make sure to check our Eventbrite and sign up there. And then kind of winding out May, we have our outreach committee meeting to kind of keep our outreach program going, because we do keep planning and keep working on things over the summer, even though we're changing SWE fiscal years. And then one of our very exciting events, which I'm actually going to go ahead and jump to our promotional materials on the next page, is our Rainier Ramblings Women in Baseball. On behalf of Angela, who's our lead curator for this, I'm very happy to encourage people to join in this very awesome topic, and thank some of our SWE members for providing pictures of themselves doing baseball-related activities. This is a theme that we picked so that we can do a meetup on June 3rd, and we're going to have basically a topic of women in baseball. Angela's put together a great list of both books, movies, and TED Talks, which I'll put up on the screen next. And then this is leading to a very fun activity of going to a Mariners ball game on the 16th of June. Both Eventbrites are live. The ball game tickets, I believe, are $13. We hope that you will join us for the discussion, and that you and maybe your family or friends are going to join us for the ball game, because we'd really love to help get out into that summer spirit and enjoy the Mariners ball game. And one of the things that Angela did is she went through and found both some modern books and some fictional books. Of course, there's always the option to watch A League of Their Own, one of my favorite movies, and then a couple of TED Talks. So hopefully there is something on this list, whether it's a book, a short story, a movie that you can watch and enjoy, that will let you engage with the topic and come. Now, keep in mind, you don't have to read all of these. You don't even have to read any of them. If you'd just like to come and enjoy a discussion on women in baseball, please join us in early June. And whether you make it to the discussion or not, please also join us for the ball game. So really excited to bring that.
Teresa, is there a book that you're excited to read off of Angela's list? I didn't realize there's so many.
So I'm actually more excited about the fact that I have an excuse to watch A League of Their Own for a reason.
It's always a good movie.
Yep. But there's a couple of them. The Making My Pitch, A Women's Baseball Odyssey, is a little bit more modern, about women in modern baseball versus the women that played baseball during World War II, when the men were overseas serving. So I'm kind of interested in sort of the contemporary aspect, because I know a lot about the historical aspect.
Oh, I see.
So, but yeah, either way, it's a League of Their Own. I'll just make another pitch for that. Awesome movie. There's no crying in baseball.
So crying baseball.
Yep. So up next, Elaine, do you want to just give us a quick rundown of what we got for our special task forces?
Sure. So our first special task force that is still on, these are all ongoing as well too, is the Section Election Standard Operating Procedures. As I alluded to earlier, we're trying to be more in line with what HQ is doing for their elections, whether it's for community relations, or if you wanted to be higher up in the chain within them. So we are working to develop an improve SOP for our section election process. Some of it's being implemented now, and some hopefully will be implemented in the elections coming forward. Our second one is a section travel reimbursement policy. This is coming based off of the fact that with regions going away, a lot of officers that went to represent our region would normally get reimbursed for representing at different events. And so with that going away and becoming potential scholarships for students, we're looking to see what we can do here within SWE P&W to reimburse those officers and volunteers that would go and represent us at conferences, at the We Locals, or any other events that SWE headquarters puts out. Our Fifth one, the glory of paperwork and record keeping. This task force is identifying the gaps and prioritizing what should be worked on in what order. An excellent example of that is that our bylaws have to be reviewed and updated, and we actually do have a deadline on that one versus some of the other paperwork we're working on. So if anyone's interested in helping in any capacity with that, that is what that special task force is for. And number 6 is the scholarship program evaluation improvement. And this is to look at ways to improve our current program, to stream the application process and potentially expand offerings. Currently, all of our scholarship programs, whether it's for university students or for high school students, it is all done through paper, through the mail, and a lot of that has moved online for headquarters. So we're looking to see how we can move more of that online to make it easier for students to apply and to make it easier for those of us like judges that we're looking for the comp scholarships to make it easier for them to also judge.
Yeah, so one of the things that I just want to point out, especially about the last two, is that we are really trying to be better set up for future improvements by what we're doing now. So a lot of these projects sound really big, but we're starting with very small pieces so that we can continue to make little bits of improvement, not only for our member engagement side, but for our infrastructure and officer management side. So anything that you're interested in helping with, whether it's listed here as a task force or it's something that you see that you might want to help the section with, let us know. We're happy to take any help that we can get. So on that note, that wraps up our minute or so with SWE P&W, which takes us over to our behind the scenes with SWE and all things considered with that. Up first, I want to just do a quick recap of our annual banquet. We had a fantastic time. We had a great keynote talking about famous women in STEM history with Jill Teachin. She's a great speaker. Loved having the chance to meet her. She's a past president of SWE, and she had so much energy, not only for the passion for her topic, but just really excited to see what we were doing as a section. And we got some encouragement and even some suggestions for her for some of the women in baseball that we might talk about during our discussion. And she helped publish and write a book with the women in history. And I know Angela's looking at potentially doing that book as one of our Rainier Rambling selections for next year and potentially tying that into a Women's History Month event. So we're super excited that that went really well. Coupled with that, we do want to say congratulations to all of our section award winners. Claire Robinson got our most valuable person. While she wasn't able to attend the banquet, I did steal her picture from the virtual brand archive so that she could have a nice picture on this slide. So sorry, Claire, that it's not the pretty picture with a certificate. I'll get one of you with that later. Nicole Woon got our Volunteer of the Year Award for Professional Development. She's done a really great job engaging with and planning events, including some of the pie making events and several other things, helping Sonia out on the PD side. Holly Bork got our Volunteer of the Year for outreach. Holly has really stepped up and stayed engaged consistently with, I believe it's our Girl Scout outreach program. I have to say it was really exciting to get to meet her face to face because I hadn't had a chance to do that. So it's always great to see and put a face with the name. So congratulations, Holly. And then Angela for her work with our book club and kind of helping revamp that and take that into a new direction. She got our Members' Choice Award. So again, congratulations to all of our section awards winners. And so I know, Elaine, you didn't have a chance to join us at the banquet, but was there anything that you wanted to know about the banquet?
So I had talked with Jill previously about what she would talk about at the banquet. So I was kind of curious because she has such varied things that she's done in her career and things she's done with SWE and women in science that I was kind of interested to know more about kind of what she talked about. And if there's things she didn't talk about, then that leaves it open to bring her in for future events.
Oh yeah, I can definitely say, so her focus was really about presenting the different women in history, whether it's, history that's long ago or more modern history that accomplished things on the STEM side. And I really appreciated that perspective because I don't know about you, but I feel like when I went through my history classes, we didn't learn about these women. They're not in the textbooks. And just getting that perspective that it's, you know, there were women doing things, and sometimes publishing under pseudonyms, or sometimes not getting credit for their work because the men got the credit, but they still drove the innovation. So I love her passion about bringing those stories to not only audiences like our SWE group, but there's a whole curriculum and curriculum guide so that this can be brought into an educational setting as well. And I just, I'm hugely passionate about that. So I got really excited with her story on that. But I would definitely, to answer the other part of your question, is there's so much more that she can talk on, you know, whether it's her career path or other things like that, or her SWE path to be section or society president. So I would definitely say if she ever wanders through again, I'm sure that we would be happy to have her speak on any of the other topics she's an expert on.
Oh, good. I'm glad it went well. I know one of the examples she had given me in the fall in Austin was Marie Curie, because a lot of people do know of Marie Curie, but her husband passed away early on in their marriage, and even later on in her academic life, as things were being attributed to him. So it was interesting for her to it was both Grace and I at that lunch.
Yeah.
Tell us that as an example of someone's like, here's a woman that you do know about in science, but things were still being listed as like something she worked on with her husband long after he had passed away.
Yeah.
Just because that was the only way for her to get her knowledge out there.
Yeah. And I admire all the women that went through that, and in some cases still go through that, in terms of what they had to do to get their work published, and the fact that in some cases it was ignored by history. And that's why I just, teaching now the stuff that has been neglected in the textbooks, as it were, I think is important. That's one of the reasons I love SWE, is because sometimes without the people in SWE or the resources that SWE provides, I would never know some of this stuff either.
Yeah. Well, I'm disappointed I wasn't able to attend, but I'm glad that those that did attend got to hear her talk about that.
Oh. So hopefully everybody else listening also enjoyed the banquet, but I had a blast and really appreciated it. So up next on our section level, want to let everybody know that we have launched our Outreach Corner e-blast. So we have a handy dandy banner up there on the right. So that'll be your visual cue, if you will, of our Outreach Corner. Our first one went out today. This has been a collaboration between our virtual brand team and our outreach team to try to figure out ways that we can get information on our outreach events with a little bit more detail to your inboxes. So the goal of this is to highlight all the upcoming outreach and volunteering events in a little bit more detail than we potentially cover in the monthly highlights email, and potentially a little bit longer of a time frame. And why are we doing this is because in some cases, some of our outreach events are planned months in advance, and we know that, and we want to make sure that you know that too. While we have it out on social media and Eventbrite, this is just another access point for you to be able to get it in your inbox and know what's going on, not only this month, but also future months. And that lets you plan ahead and hopefully work to arrange your schedule so that you can be one of our awesome Sweester volunteers. So really excited that got launched this month, and our target for that is going to be mid-month, where the monthly events email is going to be at the beginning of the month. If you didn't see that, it is available up on our webpage. We did send it out to the outreach segment of our list, i.e. the people that have really expressed a passion for outreach. If you want to make sure you're on that segment, make sure you go to our webpage and update your subscription services. If you're not sure how to do that, message us on the Facebook page or at our emails, and we'll make sure you get connected to that part of our mailing list. So switching over now to some of our region business. One of the things we announced at the banquet is that we are doing a Region J scholarship fundraiser. So part of what's going on here with the regions being dissolved is that we also have to deal with the finances. Well, Region J would like to endow a second scholarship as a part of its big send-off. Right now, there's a little bit of a gap to get to the required $25,000 to endow it. And so SWE PNW has committed to try to help raise about $1,500 to help close that gap. So as a section, we have a link out there. There's been an email we're going to be sharing, and all donations would need to be made by May 25th. So that way we can get the money from SWE PNW to the region so that the region can endow the scholarship before the end of the fiscal year, which is the end of June. Now, to date, we have an update for you. We've raised $210. So we've got our little like Sweetster mountain climber, because we're in the Pacific Northwest here, making their way up the mountain. So we're hoping that you will help us reach the summit of that mountain and get us to $1,500 in support of the Region J scholarship. So I'm super excited to be offering that through PNW and help future generations of Sweetsters.
I'm excited about this scholarship as well. I guess the only thing we're not saying here is that this scholarship is only for sophomores and above. So freshman scholarships have like a different timeline and different stipulations put on them. So that will put us at having two, hopefully, endowed Region J scholarships for sophomore level and above for the for the Region J area.
Yep, and that's a great point, Elaine, is that we're trying to broaden what we're offering from the geographic area of the Pacific Northwest. And the other part, and it is out on the email and out on our blog, we'd like to name, if this scholarship raises enough money and is able to be endowed, it would be named for one of the godmothers of Region J, Pritch. And there's a lot of great information on her on our blog, and we're going to be sharing some of that to social media in the upcoming days here. But she was a long-term member and I believe a founding member of Pacific Northwest, but also heavily involved in Region J activities. And there's a couple of oral histories and articles that have been made available on various sites. And so we've got those links and a little bit of a bio and a statement. So if you'd like to learn more about Pritch, we'll have that information available on our blog. So coupled with our region updates, we want to remind everybody that with the regions being dissolved, all the social media accounts associated with the region level are going to be closed at the end of this fiscal year. That's important because if you're a member of a like Facebook group or something like that, and there's pictures out there that you want to have, make sure you go and download copies of those before they close down the group. The SWEVE Facebook group has officially been launched at the society level. We encourage you guys to join that. We've shared that a couple of times on social media. Want to make sure that everybody's aware and can have access to that. And then the key takeaway here is none of this affects any of our section level stuff. All of our section level stuff is going to go through into the next fiscal year and hopefully well beyond that. So switching over from our region side, I think we've got our society side next. So Elaine, you want to recap in terms of what the, I believe it was hot off the presses update is for HQ officers?
Yes, this was an email that came out this morning that I did my best to get the information out here, and Teresa cleaned it up for me. So our current officers from the previous year that are carrying over to the FY19 years is that Penny Worsing will be our president now. Our secretary is still Alexis McKittrick. Our directors are still Diana and Rachel. Speaker of the Senate is still Kate. Our trustees are Esther Barbuto, Marjinden, Diana Jacques, Janice Maltini, and Mary Studlick. And our collegiate director is Ingrid Arambula.
And a quick shout out to Esther, who is also one of our SWEET PNW members. So if you see her at events, it's really cool because she is one of the trustees, and she's more than happy to talk about the path to trustee as well.
Yeah, and she's one of the youngest members, I believe,
Yes.
of being in the trustees as well. So anyone who has any interest in that, Esther is always willing to give her input and help with that.
Yep, and guidance. So then up next, we have our next part of the officer slate.
So these are the officers that we were voting on, if people recall, in the month of May. So our president-elect is now Cindy Hoover. The treasurer will be Karen Roth. We have 3 new directors. It'll be Andrea, Libby, and Natalie. And we have 3 new trustees, Diane, Kathy, who's actually down in our California group, and then Sandra. And then the deputy speaker of the Senate is Olivia, and the secretary of the Senate is Gail.
And I will also give a shout out to Sandy here, who is also a SWEET PNW member. So she's another person to talk to on her particular SWEET path because she also serves as trustee along with Esther.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
Yep. And then I believe we have our next one where we get to go. Congratulations, Linda!
So our campaign was successful, and Linda is our write-in candidate, and she will be our new Region J first 3-year term Senator Tamara is finishing out her second year of her 2-year term, and then going forward, it won't be based on regions. It'll be based on people's interests and people being nominated for these positions. So congratulations to Linda. It's very exciting.
Yes, and also again, thank you, Linda, for being willing to let us write you in. And then I think on our last bit of our society news, we've got our conferences on deck. I know this is a really far out conference, We18. It's going to be in Minneapolis in October. Don't worry, it's all indoor.
I believe last week it opened for registration. I have heard, I haven't personally signed up yet, but I have heard now that you sign up for your hotel block at the same time that you're registering. So hopefully that helps alleviate some of the problems we saw last year. I don't know. I guarantee nothing.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit more to what's going on there, because there are some pretty clear deadlines when it comes to when you have to book and like pay for it. Because I believe what they are also doing this year is if you book a hotel and you don't return it by a certain date, I think sometime in June, if I recall correctly, you have to pay a one-night non-refundable deposit, and that should also help with maintaining availability of the hotels going forward, so people aren't just sweeping them up and then returning them at the end.
Okay.
Part of this came up at the We Local Portland town hall meeting, and so where there was a little bit of a discussion on that. And basically, part of the reason that they changed this is part of it's from the member side in terms of people not being able to find hotels, because last year I'm pretty sure that the first batch of hotels sold out in like less than 48 hours.
I think it was pretty quick because I know you and I were both trying to register that week, and like within 2 weeks, all the hotels were booked.
Yep. But the bigger impact from a society side is because they negotiate these contracts, what was happening is people were returning hotel rooms, and there was a huge attrition rate last minute. And then SWE was on the hook to pay essentially for some of these rooms that were returned. And so to help SWE manage that side of it and to help it be more accessible to members, they've implemented this new registration and hotel block coupling. So make sure that when you go in to register that you have all the information you need. Take a look at the materials ahead of registering to make sure you're following the sort of cycle and the deadlines, because we don't want you to get caught, but we want to make sure you have a spot if you're going.
And if you were involved in any volunteering last year at SWE 17 in Austin, those codes to use for SWE 18 should have already gone out ahead of time. So if you're not seeing them, there should be contacts for those that you should be able to get a hold of to get those. Because I helped out with volunteering with the collegiate students and at a luncheon, and that was supposed to give me, I believe, like 25% off this year. So I know I got that code in April. So if other people did something similar where they either did that luncheon as well, or they did design lab, or they just did general volunteering, those codes should have been sent out ahead of time.
Yep, and there's also, I still believe, open opportunities for volunteering, not just at the SWE Next Design Lab, but also in those other roles at the conferences. So be sure that you're looking for those opportunities. One of the other things to know, because conferences are not cheap, there are also some opportunities for grants at the society level for both college and professional attendees. That is up on the, I believe, the SWE Altogether blog, and I believe also the We18 webpage that we have listed there. If you're in the situation where you might need some of that financial help to be able to attend and you don't have any other resources for that, please go check out what SWE has, because I know SWE is really trying to make the conference as accessible as possible, even with the expense of it.
And if you guys don't know, Teresa and I are both kind of from the Midwest, so while it could be cold, Minneapolis does have internal skyways that are completely enclosed. So if you really don't want to go outside and the weather's kind of iffy, you can stay completely inside, as long as you stay in the downtown area.
Yep.
If you venture out to like Mall of America and thing like that, you're on your own. You're gonna
right. But if you need any of those packable tips in terms of what you should bring to a Minneapolis located city in the middle of October, let us know. We'll be more than happy to tell you and give you some tips on what you should bring with you.
Exactly.
I do recommend a hat just in case.
You never know. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people have talked about the great blizzard of 90 something. that happened on Halloween, and I hadn't moved yet to the Midwest. So I'm just like, okay, and people still talk about it. So I mean,
Yep.
you never know what's going to happen in Minnesota that time of year.
Yep. But some of us are very excited for that. So yay, Midwest.
Yeah, and I'm excited because I know they revamped a lot of the downtown, because if you don't know, Minneapolis also hosted the Super Bowl. So there's a lot of improvements that have been made to the city that I have yet to see myself. So I'm excited to see everything that's changed and updated and what's going on down there.
Yeah, I went to college at the University of Minnesota, right there in Minneapolis, and I'm excited to see some of the changes because I've been through a couple of times since I graduated, but it's been ages. So I'm excited to see everything.
Yeah.
So on that note, I think that winds us down on our sweet business stuff, which means that it's time for our shout outs. So want to give a shout out first off to Maria Barna, who joined us last April, and that was her first time doing the Digital Digest and representing the NomCom. And we had a few technical difficulties getting everything up and running with all the connections we had, but wanted to give her a shout out for tolerating that and rocking out her first Digital Digest and joining us for that. And then I want to reiterate our shout out to Linda Thomas, who was very willing to let us write her in for our Region J campaign and now has become our senator. So really excited for that and excited to kind of engage with her as senator as we go forward. And then last but not least for this month, we have Leanne Martins being shout out by Grace. And the shout out that Grace has for her, she did a great job on our COM awards and scholarships. So thank you, Leanne, for the help on that.
Yes, thank you, Leanne, for helping spearhead some of that work.
All right, and so that wraps up our shout outs, which means that we officially get to our rotating topic now. So for this month's rotating topic, we are going into our FY19 election update with Elaine, our president-elect.
So here's a little blurb about me. I am the current SweetP&W president-elect, so that means that as part of this being a 2-year term, and the only 2-year term of all the positions within SweetP&W, it means I'm the president next, starting in July. I put some of my previous SWE experience. I kind of started in SWE in college, and I was president, or in the college they called it vice president, and then I became president. And then for professional, I've been PD co-chair, collegiate counselor, been a section rep out here. I'm actually Region J's last secretary out here. A lot of what I've been doing is pushing motions through to make sure we're able to do things like reimburse people for going to WE Portland and making sure that we're able to close out the funds for the scholarship so it doesn't just sit there, because we have to do something with the funds once we are gone as an entity.
And I will say, on behalf of all of the section reps, and specifically as a section rep for P&W, thank you, Elaine, for helping push all of this stuff through to make sure that we wind down the year nicely with Region J.
Yeah, I think we're going to close out pretty good. I mean, it's not as busy of a year as it has been previously, but I think we're going to be able to close out and do nicely with that. Yeah. So my education is, I have a bachelor's of science in electrical engineering, but I also have a bachelor's of arts in physics and music performance. And I just finished my master's of science in electrical engineering last year at UW. My work title is environmental compliance engineer over at Microsoft here in Redmond, Washington. And some of my hobbies are running specifically. If you see my Facebook feed, my husband and I do a ton of the Disney runs, and yet we have yet to do a race here in Seattle since moving out here. We love to travel, loving food and cooking it, and volunteering. And I decided to run for president-elect after being the section rep out here, because I'm passionate about SWE and helping others, whether it's professionals or collegiates with their SWE career or their own personal career.
That's really great. I always like getting the intros, even though we've been chatting for a while already tonight. Not everybody's had a chance to meet you, so I think a good introduction to our section at any time is always appreciated.
Yeah, and if you hear the little baby whales in the background, that is my next and new role is that I'm a mom, and which is why I kind of missed our banquet. Is she came a little early, and so the day of the banquet was the day she came home from the hospital. So learning how to juggle everything is kind of my new role on everything. So hopefully there are others in the section that are able to help me, and then I can help those going forward.
Yeah, it's always good to share those tips. And speaking of roles and responsibilities, so we're getting into our election update piece here, but the whole driver behind how we run our elections is our NOMCOM. Can you talk to us about what the role of the NOMCOM is?
So the nomination committee is here to help facilitate and oversee the section election cycle. They are responsible for developing a slate of candidates for elected positions, which is based off of where we are currently in the cycle. We're in the process of vetting the candidates, which means we have sent out a packet that we have worked on maybe like a month and a half based off of what we've seen previously in previous election cycles to ask the candidates for information on themselves. And so based off of that is how we're going to be vetting candidates. And after that period is completed, we will solicit feedback from our members on the candidates. And hopefully, based off of these two pieces of information, we'll be able to announce our slate. And the slate to the membership is how we know who we're voting for and for what positions.
That's great. And so, like, while there's a lot of process on our NOMCOM and process documents, we also have a good group of people behind there. You want to give us a quick introduction to who's serving on our NOMCOM this year?
So the main person behind the scenes is Maria Barna as the chair. She has actually been on the NOMCOM a couple years now, and is doing very well. Our vice chair is Grace. She's also kind of helping me out since with having a new baby at home, I'm not able to actually actively participate on the nomination committee as stated in the bylaws, but she's helping me out there with that. Kalyani Malela is also a nomination committee chair, as is Kimber Hinson, who is also a previous Sweet P&W officer, and Claire Robinson. And in order to be on the nomination committee, you have to not be running for a position this year, and you have to be voted in by the current EC. So all of these members are great assets to Sweet P&W, and I thank them so much for the time that they're putting into doing this.
Yes, definitely a shout out of thanks there. And then in addition to what you said in terms of having to be voted on, one of the things that we had to do this year as a EC is we had to vote on Maria as chair and Grace as vice chair, because technically the position of president-elect runs the NOMCOM. And so this was our backup plan that we needed to officially vote in. So all of that was officially voted on by our EC. At the point in time, we realized that we needed that. So it's all above board there.
Right. And so, as we did not see we needed a backup plan before, this is something that will be written into future bylaws, because you never know what point in life everyone is at.
Yep. And it's always better to have that backup plan.
Exactly.
So in terms of the positions that we have going forward, so we've talked a little bit about the different roles that people have had as we've talked through tonight's Digital Digest, but what are our positions for next year that we're going to be voting on?
So all of our positions are open for next year. President-elect, which, like I said earlier, is a 2-year term. Your first year, you're president-elect, and the subsequent year, you are president. Our vice president of outreach and vice president of professional development, our secretary, and our treasurer. And
Right.
if anyone is familiar with previous elections, you will notice that there is a position that is no longer listed. And that position is section representative. And that is because that position previously was the liaison between the section and the regions. And with regions going away, that role is being diversified into different areas of HQ and is supposed to be primarily now the secretary's role.
Yep, and that's a good point to make in terms of there's still a lot of stuff in terms of the relationship between section and the leadership coaching committee, which supports sections and HQ. There's a lot of great information out there that we as section officers have been reviewing and looking at it, but that's part of what's going to feed into our overall bylaws review in terms of how we want to structure ourselves based on the guidance and the society local bylaws. So super excited to be looking at that over the summer here. So I know, Elaine, you kind of mentioned it a few times in terms of where we are in the process, but we've got several steps on our election cycle. You want to give us a quick highlights rundown of that?
So our section election cycle, it's a mouthful, is kind of based off of our bylaws. So, which again, if anyone wants to help us with bylaws review and updates this summer to change anything, by all means. But so the first point that we've already completed was the candidate interest form. And this was just people having interest in running for any of these officer positions and just kind of putting their name in the ring for it. And so right now it's the candidate vetting process, which the nomination committee has submitted documentation that they're asking those that had expressed interest submit information on themselves so that they are able to look at the candidates to be like, oh, like you're saying you want to run for this, but based off of your experience, are you sure you're not more likely to do this if they had like listed multiple roles that they wanted to run for? And this is also to help them make sure that we have at least one candidate for every position that's going out there. The slate will be announced once the vetting process has closed, and then that opens it up for the feedback period that any member within CPW can give feedback on the candidates. And that period, I believe, is a month.
I believe so.
Yes. So if some people are wondering why things are getting dragged out, it's because there are set timelines for some of these things, and so that kind of dictates how long this whole process takes.
And
So
those set timelines are per our bylaws. That is also one of the things that our SOP or our strategic task force is looking at in terms of our election cycle process and the bylaws update as well.
yes, exactly. And so after this process is closed, the slate will be finalized and announce the section, and that will begin our voting period. And the voting period, I also believe, is it another month or is it 2 weeks?
I think it's a little bit shorter.
Okay.
I think the I'm going to mix it up now. One is 30 days and I think one is 20 days. And I do apologize for not.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. So once the election voting period is open, and you do have to be a SWE member in order to vote. That is your right as a paid member, and being in our section is that you get to vote. That's the same right that you would have in any other professional society. So they do check for that. For voting, and then our election results will be announced, and that's when we will announce the new officers and hopefully start the transition period of the previous year's officers to the current, and be announcing our events for the FY19 year.
Yeah, so one of the things to know is that this does sound like a somewhat convoluted and complex process, but the good thing is that between our bylaws, our current SOPs, and kind of some of the improvements we've made, there's a lot of support to guide the NOMCOM through this. So it's not made up from scratch every year, and we're trying to get better about the behind the scenes on this as well. And one of those things, jumping right into a little bit more of a highlight on the what's in work now. I know, Elaine, you've mentioned it a couple of times with the candidate vetting, but do the plug for this is one of the things that we improved off of the task force in terms of bringing in the leadership competency model and the application form. Do you want to give us a couple of highlights here?
So the competency model is something that HQ, I think, had announced last year that they were going to start using themselves. And so, like Teresa just said, part of what we were talking about in the task force was, should we use this within SWEPW, and if so, in what manner? And so the discussion was kind of to kind of high level follow what HQ does. We not be as strict of asking everything that they're asking for. Like, I don't believe we're asking for a SWE resume, requiring it. It's just, I think it's more like recommended is an example of one thing.
Optional.
Yeah. And so part of what the form will be is the candidate information, the leadership experience, responses to questions, and candidate agreement. And really, this is just to help you, if you're thinking of running for an officer in SWEPW, sometimes that leads to running for committees within HQ, or even running for awards within different levels of the organization. And having that pulled together ahead of time, it's just really easy to just continually update it as you go along. So that's kind of the intent, because a lot of people who start out as officers kind of go to different levels within SWE.
Yeah, and one of the other things that I'll add just in terms of the improvements on the application form with the candidate agreement is it also helps make sure that people understand what the role is that they're getting into a little bit better, and not only what that means for them, but maybe the competencies that would need to go along with that role. Because we don't want somebody stepping into a role and then all of a sudden being surprised at what that role entails. So there's a lot more upfront information on that application form so that you can really think about what role is going to be a best fit for where I want to grow or the skill set that I currently have.
Yeah, and SWE at a college level is very different than SWE at a professional level, and just kind of helping also with that transition if you were active as a collegiate versus a professional.
Yeah. So then I think we've got our what's up next, which is our candidate slate announcement. And we do have a couple of updates from our NomCom here in terms of timing.
So the candidate slate, I believe it's the 21st of May. There was a meeting ahead of time before this. I don't know the outcome of that meeting. This will be communicated by the section through email, social media posts, update to FY19 Election Central. So check your Facebook, check your Instagram, check your emails from us, and we'll let you know who the candidates are that are running for everything. Check the skies. We're going to hire skywriters. It's everything.
One of those things is not true. We'll let you guess which one. So then after that, in our on deck situation, we got a little bit more detail from our NomCom on the membership feedback.
So during the membership feedback period, members are provided the opportunity to give feedback on the candidates via feedback form, and it goes directly to the nomination committee. The way it's been written this year, it is completely anonymous. So do not fear retributions for your honesty. We want people's honesties about candidates, not malicious in any way, just critical feedback. It'll be accepted through June 4th, and feel free to contact nomination committee at swepnwnomination@gmail.com.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'll reiterate is if you have any questions about the election cycle or how it's in accordance with our bylaws or how things are used that you're providing inputs either as a member providing feedback or as a candidate who's providing information, our nomination committee is the place to direct those questions because they are separate from our EC. They're not running, and they will be able to answer any of those questions or concerns that you have and know it's coming from the authoritative decision-making process for our election for this year through our NomCom, led by Maria as chair and Grace as vice chair. So I believe that takes us officially to our Ask Me Anything session, where we check our Facebook page and let the audio catch up and see if we have any questions. One of the things that I will say is I do appreciate all of the officers who have helped us sort of maintain and do this digital digest this year. A special shout out for Elaine for joining me tonight, because I know with everything going on in May at the end of the year for SWE and in everybody's life, it's always hard to try to make the time. So thank you, Elaine, for being my co-host tonight. And we are going to see if we have any questions out here. As I search around on this, was there anything specific that you kind of wanted to tell our members or ask a question on, Elaine?
Well, I'm hoping even with this nomination period going a bit longer than we had hoped for and anticipated, I'm hoping that people provide feedback of things they want to do over the summer, because the last thing I want to do is to have, another 4 months of nothing going on and then all of a sudden like hitting you right before conference, like, hey, these are all the events are going. So if people want to do barbecues, if people want to start a mom's group, if people want to do more book club events this summer, let us know, because we're all more than willing to help plan these events and outings, especially in the nice weather that we have this summer.
Yep, and I can definitely say, at least I know Angela's got a few things up her sleeve that she's working on. We're trying to keep the focus on the baseball one, so you all join us for a baseball game. But yeah, I think that's a great point to remind people that, even though our fiscal year changes and our officers change over the summer, we're still here to serve the membership. So we really want to make sure that we're providing those engagement opportunities, whether it's, getting together or, hosting a dialogue. So please keep the ideas coming and continue to help us stay engaged with stuff over the summer, and keep an eye on your inbox, because like we kind of went through, there's a whole bunch of outreach stuff coming up between here and June. I think there's also a call out for presenters and a bunch of other things that you still have an opportunity to engage with SWE between here and, say, that society conference that we were talking about in October.
Yeah, and I believe the headquarters scholarships for freshmen will be opening up for a review soon. So I think people are looking for things within headquarters to help with. Like, check your emails for that as well.
And also keep an eye out for other opportunities, because I know they're putting calls out for a lot of the We Local host committees. And I know we've got the We Local Bellevue conference coming up next year here. So there's plenty of ways to engage, not just at a section level, but in the society level opportunities as well.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we're kind of vamping here as I see if I find any posts. I think this is the hardest part about the digital digest, is checking to see, even though we ask people to post, seeing if they've actually posted anything. Which, by the way, we do really appreciate when you guys post questions, because then, you know, it helps us know that we're here and giving the information you want, not just the information that we think you want. And we'll give it a few minutes, because I know there's a couple minutes of audio delay here, and I did post a last call for questions. I think we're doing pretty good this year in terms of one of the biggest pieces last year, and I highlighted this during the banquet, is we heard that members wanted a little bit more access to digital content and digital events. So I do encourage everybody to make sure that you go back and check out our YouTube channel, because we do record our digital digests and try to make sure that information is available for you. And then we do try to break up the digital digest into some segments that are shorter than the whole webinar, so that you can get the quick hits, if you will. And then that way it's accessible on your time, not just at the scheduled time. And that's something that I do hope that we will continue. We'll see if we can get one on the calendar for June. We're not sure yet, just because of a lot of availability in summer starting and stuff like that. We'll see if we can do that, but we will do at least one digital digest somewhere over the summer to make sure that we've got that continued communication to the section. So I think at this point I have probably vamped enough to let the audio catch up and to see if we have any questions. And I am not seeing any out there. So I think we can officially go back and I can do our wrap up. So bringing it home here, make sure you sign up for some of our outreach events in May and June. I know Dana and the people coordinating those would be really appreciative of any help that you can give on any one of those. Make sure you're watching your inbox for FY19 candidate slate announcement and the call for feedback, which will be coming soon to an inbox near you. And make sure you join us to talk women in baseball with the Rainier Ramblings, and join us for that ball game in June. So really looking forward to that. And as we were just chatting, make sure you continue to watch for ways to engage with SWE PNW over the summer, and watch as we prep and plan for our kickoff for the next fiscal year. So I think with that, Elaine, do you have any wise words of wisdom as we wrap this up here?
Just skywriting. It's going to happen. Vote for it.
I'm super excited for skywriting in FY19. We'll see how this goes. So with that, I do wish everybody a fantastic evening. If you have any questions on any of the material you saw today, you can still post questions in the Facebook group or on our SWE PNW member forum. We do keep an eye on that. And thank you for listening, whether it's live now or in the future on the replay, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you, everybody, so much, and have a great night.
Bye.